Good morning. Thank you so much for joining Forge Breast Cancer Survivor Center's coffee conversation today. So excited to have Shekinah Lee here with us. She is an amazing resource to the community. She is doing big things. And she is here to talk with us today about having gratitude through adversity. And that sounds impossible sometimes. It seems impossible sometimes. And so I'm really, really excited to have her here to kind of talk with us about things that we can do and what's realistic and what might not be realistic. Because sometimes we can have those moments of positive toxicity where we're overly positive and we're not really embracing our emotions. So really excited to just kind of talk through these things with her today. Shekinah, if you could give us an introductory statement, whatever you want to give us, let us know who you are and the things you're up to.
Hi, I'm Shekinah Joy Lee. I am a therapist here in Birmingham, Alabama. I currently do eating recovery during the day. I work in the eating recovery world. And then I work in private practice in the evening. And that looks like contract work, that looks like psychoeducation events, that looks like small groups, self-care support groups. And it looks like all things just trying to help people destigmatize the conversation around mental health through the umbrella and the lens of self-care. And so I've been able to be blessed to do a lot of things related to that and continue to build out a community of people that encourage each other, support each other, and help each other grow into the best version of themselves through mental health awareness. So I'm really, really excited to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And yeah.
Awesome. And we're just very fortunate to have you here in Birmingham. I don't think that there's enough Shekinahs in the world. And so I'm really grateful that we have one here with us locally. So I'm kind of diving right into the topic. So what does it mean to have a sense of gratitude through adversity? Like, what does that look like? And how can somebody, like how we were talking a little bit before, avoid it being a toxic type of habit where we're not embracing the emotion and the journey and all of these different things? Like, how do we address those things, but also leaving space to get through it in a positive way and not ignoring the reality of the human part of us?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is like trying to make sure that if you think of yourself as like a ship, right? Or something like a ship like passing and things like that. Eventually you have to put down your anchor. Your anchor is not something that's like meant to stop the ship from being able to continue to flow if it needs to, or it's not anything that's trying to say that it doesn't have the potential to go anywhere else or do anything else. But the anchor is there to help house and support and make sure that the ship is supported as it's getting whatever fuel it needs, as it's getting rebuilt or cleaned or whatever it needs to be. The anchor is there to help in that support system. So when you think about things like gratitude, mindfulness, being positive, it's an opportunity for you to have a place of balance that hangs right there while you're navigating all of life's things. And then it's also an opportunity for you to have a place like almost like a baseline to go back to, that allows you to like make reference to positive things that might have happened in the past. If you're having a really rough day on this Wednesday, I thought about something that happened Tuesday or thought about something that happened Monday, a point of gratitude in those other days can help push you through this next day with the understanding that, I got through that day and it was pretty rough. So maybe I can get through another one too. So it's not something that, I mean, oftentimes we hear the thing about we don't want to be insincere and we want to make sure that we're authentic, right? But there's a place that you can hold space for both. You can be authentic and still be able to hold places for gratitude. Because I'm really, really a firm believer in the idea that if we look for the good in spaces, we can find it.
And I love that you said, like, when we think about our whole day, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just telling a coworker of mine, we don't have bad days. We have bad things that happen in a day. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really hard to wrap your mind like around that, like, because it can be a series of things that happen and you're just like, oh my God, this is a horrible day. It was terrible. Throw the whole day away. But, mindfulness could
Yeah.
be thinking a little bit differently, right? Like, sure, you probably weren't feeling most of the day, but is it the day or is it the things that happened in that day?
Right, 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 right.
And so, when we think about gratitude or mindfulness, some people might think about, oh, I just need to be thankful for hard times, or you want me to meditate right now? I don't feel like meditating right now.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a misconception as to what those things really can look like in real time and what they can really do for a person. So, if you could kind of break down what is mindfulness in a day-to-day type of situation, or like, hey, I'm having some stress or some heightened emotions, what are some things that I could be doing to kind of remain mindful in this situation and kind of change my energy? And also, how do you, how would gratitude kind of or improve somebody's overall being in a situation where they're faced with something that's very difficult in their life?
Ah, I love this. Okay, so the first part, the awareness alone is what equals the gratitude. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And the awareness alone is what equals the mindfulness, I should say, right? So what do I mean by that? When we're talking about, like, let's say if you are in a situation talking to a friend or something like that, or people been calling, all of a sudden you're just snappy all day, just been real feisty. What is this about? Why do I feel this way, right? And that little fussing at this person or having an attitude with this person, that like back and forth that you experience is really just evidence of maybe there's something else going on. And let me check on that. That is mindfulness, right? It's not like I'm supposed to make everything peaches and rainbows immediately. I need to go sit down for 20 minutes and do a meditation all the time. Like that's not always the result. It really is acknowledgement of how I'm feeling versus everything else that's going on around me. Acknowledgement of like what I'm feeling and how that's impacting how I'm showing up in these other spaces. And then it's like, how can I make the shift? So then that's when that gratitude piece starts to come in, right? What are the things? My favorite thing to talk about is self-inventory with self-care, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because taking inventory of yourself is almost like a toolbox. Once I know that it's there, I know that it's there. If you have a pen, your favorite pen and stuff like that, once you know that this is your favorite pen to write with, that's your favorite pen to write with. You don't try to like get a new pen or anything like that. If you see another pen, cool, but you know what you like to use, right? So the same way it happens with our coping skills, with our positive affirmations that we might use, with our favorite book that we like to read or our favorite person to talk to. All these things are like things that we know we can use, right? So gratitude is another one of those tools, something that we know we can use. And the reason why gratitude is so powerful is because when we talk about cognitive behavioral therapy, think about it in this real nice, beautiful circle space, right? My words trigger thoughts, my thoughts trigger emotions, my emotions trigger actions. And it goes into a circle like this. Typically, if you're feeling like in the midst of something that's really overwhelming and painful and makes you like want to throw away the day, right? Start saying something different about it. Start saying something different, even if it's like, okay, so what did happen really well today? Well, I woke up. Okay. All right. The coffee machine was working. I was able to make my coffee. Yes. That was great. Okay. I was able to, I was able to put on what I need to put on, get dressed for the day. Great, great, great. Okay. Okay. It's not terrible outside. It's not freezing. Okay. I put on a nice little coat. It's fine. But little things like if you try to find these little things, you see that my words are now thinking about my coat that was so warm today, or that feeling is what's coming up for me. Because I mean, we like to talk about how like we multitask and stuff like that, and we can. We're really, but our brains don't focus on more than one thing at a time. They focus on this one thing, and if you allow it to, you control that train. Another bigger thing about how powerful gratitude is understanding that literally your feelings are fleeting, right? So when I say feelings are fleeting, like your feelings, your emotions, that irritation, you being angry, you being frustrated, it shows up for like a minute, maybe 60 to 90 seconds is how long feelings actually truly last. The thing that makes us carry them is our thoughts about the feelings. It's the meta emotions around the feelings. You see what I'm saying? I'm
Mm-hmm.
angry. I can't believe they did that. And now you've replayed the whole scenario in your head. You don't play, you practice your argument, what your points are going to be the next time you see them, all these other kind of things. And now you've built up this momentum around this negative emotion because of the thoughts that you had around it. So to answer those 2 points, the first one is like mindfulness means awareness. Like you just need to be aware of what's going on with you, right? We have a lot of tasks, we have a lot of things we take care of. We're mothers, we're sisters, we're business owners, we're teachers, we're doctors. We do all these different things. We're in all these different spaces. And it's very hard to take a pause and really reflect on myself and say, okay, but how am I feeling right now? Right? That's the question. And then after we get there, based on that feeling, but what can I shift? How can I shift? What's something good to think about?
Mm-hmm.
Gratitude brings into that space, and gratitude can help us to shift.
I love all of that and I want to bag it and sell it. But like I love that you point out like that mindfulness is awareness, because I think that people hear the word mindfulness and like I said, you tend to think that, oh, I need to go sit in a corner quietly and do all of these different things. But it can look so individual for people
Right.
that might work for some people, but for others, like it might be, well, let me sit down and identify something that could help ease me right now. Or what is something that keeps me going, right?
Right.
When we think about what drives us and what keeps us energized and what keeps us motivated, like even knowing those things and taking a moment to acknowledge those things when you need to
Yeah.
is is very similar to being like, okay, like I'm having my mindful moment. It just might not look like, you sitting crisscross with your hands in the air and nice music playing in the background. Um,
Right.
and so, what are some other tips that you might have for somebody who's having a really hard time with this kind of concept? Because it's a brain muscle, right? It's
Yeah. Yeah.
training your mind. It's changing your habits, and that can be really difficult. I think doing it and framing your mind around doing it can be quite a task for someone who's not had that type of skill developed just yet,
Yeah.
or it might just be something that's completely new to them. Like sometimes some people are just very frank, right? And they're just like,
Yeah.
nah, this is the reality of the situation, and that doesn't make me mindful, and that doesn't make me mindful. So for those people who might have a hard time transitioning their mindset to think differently about what mindfulness actually means and how
Yeah.
that can translate into gratitude, even in the worst of situations.
So I think that what we have to realize first, right? And what helps us the most first is identify at the end of the day that you have to meet yourself where you're at and give yourself grace in that space. I think a lot of times when we talk about what it means to like navigate something that's difficult, we have all these feelings about how we're supposed to feel. And that's not necessarily fair, right? I'm supposed to be thankful. I'm supposed to be grateful. I'm supposed to be okay. I'm supposed to be happy right now. I'm supposed to be have all this great stuff. Well, maybe you don't. Maybe you don't feel that way right now. And that is completely okay. And so that unconditional acceptance of self allows you to feel whatever you're feeling and be aware of it. But then after we get there, we figure out, well, what's the next best step, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not me feeling over the moon, not me walking around like Sound of Music, like spinning around in the grass and all that kind of stuff. I mean, like, what is my next best step? Like, what is the thing that'll help me to feel just a smidge better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that maybe it's like, well, maybe if I might need to clean up my space a little bit, that might help me feel a little bit better. Or you know what? I'm gonna just take a break from this. From when I go on my break today, I'm really gonna actually take a break at work. I'm gonna go outside for a second. It's pretty okay. I'm just gonna sit outside for a moment. Or maybe it's like you being able to say, you know what, I'm gonna leave work. I'm when I get off, I'm actually gonna get off, right? It could be like those little things of like the next best thing. I think sometimes we again put a lot of pressure on ourselves about what it looks like or what it's supposed to look like to be able to navigate feeling better or navigate negative emotions, right? But the fact is that we feel we're having a rough, like you're having a rough moment, that let yourself sit in that. The more we try to, if you think of yourself as like a pipeline, the more we try to suppress stuff and keep it clogged up and don't let it out and don't be not honest with ourselves, the worse it gets. And as all pipes do, they'll burst, right? So you have to make sure that there's like a certain level of acknowledgement that's happening here about what I'm feeling. Like, okay, and that's cool. So what can I do, right? One of my favorite things to ask, like even friends, when I call them and stuff like that, it's like, what do you have the capacity for right now, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
being really honest with yourself that. And if it's like, sis, I don't feel like doing nothing but sitting on this couch and watching Netflix. Well, okay, you do that then. You do that thing. But you got to figure out what it is that works for you in that regard. So, in a more practical step, it can look like asking yourself 3 questions. The first thing can be like, how am I feeling right this second? Right?
Mm-hmm.
What is in my control about what I'm feeling? Right? And then what is out of my control about what I'm feeling? Sometimes that last part about what is out of my control about what I'm feeling is maybe I just need to understand that that's really out of my control. And
Mm-hmm.
then I can go back to the thing that I can control, the next best step. That's our next best thing, right? And even if the thing that I can control is that I can end a conversation that feels a little rough, or I can go and I can sit outside for a minute instead of staying in this room where it feels overwhelming. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, and that's the hardest part, is releasing what you cannot control.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if we could control everything, I know everybody would be rich. We would all have, we would all live on a beach. Like if we could, like, I mean, really though, like if we could control everything, that's everybody's story.
Right,
Everybody
right,
has the same things. But the reality is that it's difficult to let go of the things you can't control. And
right.
some of those things, like because we think about our lives and we think about the things we want in our lives, and we say, I want to control my destiny. I want to control my story. And within reason, you absolutely can. But
Mhm.
just the reality of it is that there are so many things external to us that we cannot control, but yes, they do
Mhm.
impact us. So
Mhm.
also like changing your mindset to realize like, but I can't control that,
Yeah,
whether it's
yeah,
relationship, whether it is your health, whether it is breast cancer, whether it is just something happening with your car or whatever have you not. All of these different things that are external to us and sometimes internal. It's very hard, like me, I'm a controlling schedule. This is not what's supposed to happen. At 8 p.m. we're doing this, so it gets really hard when
Yeah.
like, it's 8 p.m. but this is already happening. So I've got to get
Right.
rectified and it just throws everything off. And so I think that recognizing that is probably one of the harder parts because we want to control everything. We want to be able to have things the way we want them when we want them, because it brings us peace and we think that
Right.
that's peace, but does it really, right? Because even if we have all these things we control, we'll find something.
Mm-hmm.
We'll
Mm-hmm.
find something in that
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
like, but I could have done that better, or I mean, if this was a little bit longer, or if this XYZ. So I think I love that you pointed out recognizing what you cannot control and you
Yeah.
learning to find peace with that, learning to be content with that. Not saying it won't still impact you because you're still going to want something, you're still going to need something, but you can't always control it.
Right. Right. Right.
So something that kind of like to kind of like wrap these things up too, because you've given so many great tips, and I think it's applicable to all walks of life. I don't think that it's just breast cancer specifically. I think that
Right.
recognizing the good in our lives and finding ways to be mindful and self-aware, doing that self-check-in, checking ourselves and checking in on ourselves is something that's universal. I think that everybody can benefit from doing that. What are some tips that you have for individuals who might want to take these steps, but they're really struggling with taking it themselves? Everybody's not good at that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's taught. That's not really always a self-taught skill. That's not
Mm-hmm.
something that everybody has knowledge of, and they kind of know where to start. So if they need help finding somewhere to start on this journey to self-wellness, this journey to understanding what it is to be grateful and to or practice gratitude, I should say, or being more mindful of self in how that impacts us externally and internally, what are some good resources here in the community that could benefit someone needing them?
So I say the first resource is your phone, right? And so when I say your phone, I mean like there are self-care assessments online and stuff like that. And I give you a great place to start as far as like understanding what it is that you need, what that looks like, and how you can go from there. Another resource for when it comes down to the idea of self-care assessment in the sense of like understanding what's going on with you, setting an alarm on your phone at like 12 p.m., right? That says something like, how are you feeling today? To get you into the habit of doing that. There's another very adorable app too. It's called Finch. You can download it. You'll get like a little icon person. You remember how they used to have the pocket pets and stuff like that?
Yes.
But yeah, it's like that. And you can download it, but you basically can just like monitor your progress that way with like your self-care routine and tools that you use in that way. Getting a calendar, a basic calendar, and where you make like your own like what are some things that make you feel good, what are some things that make you excited, and filling that in that way, that could be something that's helpful. Another resource related to just specifically self-care support groups and things like that, Inspire Counseling in Birmingham, Alabama has an amazing self-care group, and they have like a counseling group for that. There are spaces like your local like gym may have something related to like yoga or mindfulness techniques. And the thing about yoga is sometimes a little overwhelming for some, right? When it comes to like getting yourself in position, like move your body and things like that. But a bigger part of it is the idea of getting on track with being able to breathe correctly. That was like the thing that I didn't realize wasn't a thing I was doing until I took a yoga class. The holding, the deep holding, and the releasing of the breath, right? All those things can be beneficial. And then in addition to that, leaning into like your local community, whether it says rec center or anything like that, with things like volunteering, community service, they help you reignite that fire. And the reason why I started with the self-care assessment is because how those self-care assessments are broken down, they allow you to go through category of identifying what your needs are in that area, questions that you wouldn't even thought to ask yourself on your own, right? And
Mhm.
so when you go through that self-care assessment, you identify those things. And if you like, I could send you one that you might be able to send to participants or something like that. But when you go through those different areas and you gather that information, you'll be able to then take that information and use it as a guideline. Well, this says that I need to spend more time, spend more time self-reflecting. So they said they put recommendations on here of journaling, things like that. So how can I use that? You see what I'm saying? So those are resources as well. And then there's like guided meditations and things like that on YouTube. There's like support groups and things like that within Facebook. It's really, I once we identify what those things are, those areas that we need extra support in, then we can provide resources that way.
Yeah, it's kind of like a guide, like a study guide to your test,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
well, let's
Mm-hmm.
see what your needs are, and this is the best resource to kind of help you address those needs, whether it's something a
Mm-hmm.
little bit bigger or whether it's something a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Shekinah. This is lovely. I just love always talking with you. And before we wrap up, are there any other final thoughts that you would like to leave our viewers and listeners with, just to kind of hold on to as they kind of embark on this journey of utilizing gratitude as a skill set and utilizing mindfulness as a skill set, even when things are going in a direction they don't want it to go, whether that's they just got a breast cancer diagnosis or someone that they love got a breast cancer diagnosis, whether it's my car didn't start today, whatever it is.
Yeah.
What are some tips that you would want to leave with them or something that they can hold on to until they get into that next moment of their day?
Whatever day you're having today, whatever experience you're having today, every moment is a brand new one, and you got to give grace for stuff that you don't know or understand yet. And I think when we give ourselves grace with that, grace in the sense of like I'm learning myself, I'm learning how I handle this challenge, I'm learning what support looks like for me. Sometimes you might even have to reinvent your whole entire idea of what it looks like to lean into community, what gratitude, the definition of that might even be for you. You might have to reframe that, but give yourself grace for the rebuild. Give yourself grace to figure out what that is. Lean into supports that exist for you, lean into the people in this community of Forge and other partnering communities that can allow you to be able to get even the understanding the camaraderie of that this fight together, that we're all in this together, but understanding most of all that you deserve unconditional grace and unconditional acceptance, and you don't have to judge what you're feeling. How you're feeling is fine, and make sure that you're checking in with yourself and navigating what that looks like from there.
I love that. It reminds me that my quote for the day, inhale grace and exhale gratitude, was my quote
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what that sounds like, allowing yourself the grace to recognize you're human and your
Yeah.
human things are going to happen to you. But, finding those things throughout the day that can help you get to that next moment.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shekinah. It was
Of
so lovely
course.
talking to you. And thank you for all of the tips that you've left with us today.
Of
It
course.
was
Of course.
such a pleasure to have you.
Of course. Anytime.